Do an application program. It's called linear programming application real life. What we're going to do is write the steps down here at the bottom, but don't write gigantic because we're going to have to use this space also for part of our problem. Okay? So anytime you get a linear programming problem, number one, you have to read it, of course. And by read, I don't mean each week Mackenzie can make 10 and 15, 25, like read. Slow it down, read. Understand what it says. Number two, you must define your variables. You have to tell me what x equals and tell me what y equals. Can y'all see the pencil back there? Do I need to turn into a pen? Okay. Number three, you need to write the objective function. The objective function is what you're trying to figure out. How do I maximize profits? That's an objective function. How do I make the least amount of materials to sell? That's the objective function. Okay? Number four are your constraints. Constraints are your inequalities, your systems. After you find those, then you will graph your inequalities. Number six, you need to state or find your vertex or vertices. That's the actual solving part. This is when you're solving a system, when lines cross. So when you have your vertex, solving your system. Number seven, you will test your points. So test your vertices or your vertex. And then number eight, of course, you want to answer the question. Only what the question asks. If it only asks for the maximum, then don't give me the max and the minimum. Only answer what the question asks you for. Okay? Questions so far? Alright, so let's go up to our word problem. So we're going to read it. Each week, Mackenzie can make 10 to 25 necklaces and 15 to 40 pairs of earrings. If she earns a profit of $3 for each earring and $5 on each necklace, she plans to sell at least 30 pieces of jewelry. How can she maximize her profits? Thank you. How can she
The old one and this one, so I can take it back.
I will. I'll bring it down fourth period.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. How can she maximize her profits? Okay? So, my objective function, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to maximize the profits. So that means my function has to have something with profits. So, I know that I'm maximizing profits. First, we have to define our variables. That means we need to know what x equals and what y equals. We have two things, earrings and necklaces. Does it matter which one's x and which one's y? Doesn't matter, okay? But what matters is what is it about the earrings. X is the number of earrings or ears. Y is the number of necklaces. So my X and Y have to do with the number. How many of something can I make or sell? Okay? Step number 3, we are writing our objective function. So it has to do with profit, so I better have some money in there. So she earns a profit of $3 per earring, $5 per necklace. So my profit equals $3 per earring plus $5 per necklace. This is the only problem we're doing, so if you don't understand, stop and ask me. Okay? So once we have our objective function, we now have to get our constraints. You can have anywhere from 2 to 10 constraints, okay? You could probably have more than that, but we will probably keep it under 6. So let's read again so we know what we have to do. She can make 10 to 25 necklaces. So that means that I have a constraint there. So y has to be greater than or equal to 10. And then I know that she can make 10 to 25, so 25 has to be the max. So y has to be less than or equal to 25. She can make 15 to 40 pairs of earrings. So the earrings, the x, so x has to be greater than or equal to 15, but x has to be less than or equal to 40. Okay? And then I probably need some other type of equation, because it says that she only plans to sell, or she sells at least 30 pieces of jewelry, at least. So that means my x, my number of earrings, plus y, my number of necklaces, is at least, so greater than or equal to 30. Questions so far? Okay. So now, we're on step number 5. We have to graph these. So you need all 5 of these in your graph. Here's what I think is the trickiest thing, is that you have to figure out the scale you're going to put on your graph. So first of all, I know x is my earrings, and I know y is my necklaces. So that way I know how to read my graph. Here's my biggest hint. Whatever scale you make the x and the y the same scale, because then your slope works every single time. If you have different scales, then your slope is going to be all kinds of wonky. You're going to have to figure stuff out. Don't do it, okay? So I'm going to make it, every line is 5. So I'll have 5, then 10, 15, 20. So get your scales on there. I'm only writing the 30s, or excuse me, the 10s. So I'm skipping every other line and writing the 10s because I'm counting by 5s. Okay. So once your scale is on there, now you can graph. And of course, all of these you should be able to graph. This last constraint you're going to have to change. So it would say y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 30. So I'll give you a few minutes to graph these problems. Because I moved it to the other side to get it in slope intercept, right? Y equals mx plus b. So I moved the x to the other side. Okay? So all I'm doing is graphing all 5 lines. Hard to see on there. I need a color. because my scales are the exact same, even though my slope is just a -1, if I go down 5 and right 5, 5 over 5 is still what number? 1, which is why I strongly, strongly urge you to keep your scales the same on both sides. Okay? So I'll give you just a few more minutes to get your area shaded and your scale or your graphs drawn if you haven't done it. There is something that we will talk about in just a minute. Because if you notice on my graphs, I only put arrows on one side of the line. Does anybody know why my arrows are only on one side of the line? Huh? No.
Because it's profit and it's going to be positive?
Profit can be negative. I mean, it's not called profit, but you can have a negative profit, right? This right here doesn't have to do with my money. This has to do with necklaces. Can I make a negative number of necklaces? No. Can I make a negative number of earrings? No. Okay? So the money one can go any direction. But, so you're very close, Shannon, just not the word profit. Okay? Very good. All right, so now I have this area. Questions on graphing? Do you need another minute? Yes, ma'am.
If we were to graph it with the arrows, like on the test, would we get around?
No, I wouldn't take off. You just need to understand why if you see a graph that doesn't have arrows on both sides, why it doesn't have it, okay? All right, this one has a lot of vertices. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices. I like to number them just so it's easy for me to know which ones I have and haven't done. Okay? What am I plugging these vertices into? The objective function. Okay? So that's what this space down here is for. We're going to plug our vertices into the objective function. So my first point is 15, 15. So that would be 3 times 15 plus 5 times 15. To give me 45 plus 75, right? So 45 plus 75 would give me 120. So take a few minutes. I'll pause the video. That way whoever watches it's not listening to silence. You are plugging in all 5 points into your objective function. So we picked the maximum one that gave us the highest profit of 245, and then we write a complete sentence explaining what the point 4025 means. Questions? In your packet, I believe that there are 4 word problems for you to complete, okay? You have a quiz over this whole entire packet tomorrow in class. So make sure that you get it completed and make sure if you want to use colored pencils tomorrow,